Hey everybody, welcome back to Everything's a Project and Millside Chat number 3. The Reichstag fire. So, in the 1930s, the Nazis, the fascists in Germany were trying to gain power, and there was two oppositions. There was the communists, and there was the Weimar Republic, which would be like their democracy. So, like a lot of European countries, they had where they built their governments from coalitions. So you had multiple groups, and depending on how much of the vote you won is then you had to combine with that with those groups to get enough of the majority to take over power. So and that's gotten a lot of news in the last few years. That has happened in Israel. They're always jockeying around who's got, making deals and stuff. And as a quick caveat, Abraham Lincoln's vice president was a Democrat. His name was Johnson also, which is the irony, I guess, between his assassination and JFK's assassination. It brought two Johnsons to power. Under Lincoln, that Johnson and the Southern Democrats essentially killed the Reconstruction plans, and so kept the South in no longer actual slavery, but servitude. The sharecroppers essentially was, they were indebted for life to work the land. And the blacks got treated at least as bad as they did when they were slaves. When they were slaves, they had their existence had some value. After that, they not so much. So they actually were treated worse in a lot of cases. All the lynchings you hear about and stuff like that, and the rise of the KKK. So anyways, those are all Democrats, but we won't get into that. So anyways, back to Germany. So, another caveat. So the communists in Germany were Antifa. It sounds like a familiar term. It is, because it's German politics that our Democrat political party has fostered over here. They're trying to use them as their own pawns, and so Antifa is are communists, and they have to have an antagonist to exist. So they're anti-fascist. So communists versus fascists in Germany, and then eventually in the rest of Europe and stuff like that. And they don't exist, or they don't get the time of day without an adversary. So in a lot of countries there isn't fascism, like in the United States. So what they did was they broadened their attacks against capitalists. And in Italy, their fascists more so were was cronyism, really, is what it was. Mussolini got in there, and then all his buddies had companies, and then he gave them favor, and that's how they got their power. So that's one area where capitalists and fascists are kind of close together. But in a lot of places, they really weren't. Like in Spain, they didn't have that as much. They they were more, the anti-fascists were more attacking the capitalists. And by the way, in Spain, communists are on the right side of the political spectrum as far as labels. And that's what this stuff is labels. You know, because you'll hear, oh, the Nazis they're right-wing this and that. No, they're socialists. They just are a little bit different than the communists. They're all left. Essentially, capitalism and conservatism is on the right. Most of the other stuff is on the left. And people will go blue in the face because they need those antagonists. They can't, fascists and communists cannot take up the same space for there to be political attention. They're the same people. You know, technically communists are open borders, fascists are closed borders. So, and capitalists are open door. Okay, so again, everybody's fighting for power in Germany. You know, they're still reeling from their loss in World War One. The concessions that they had to give the rest of Europe after World War One were devastating. Germany's economy was completely destroyed, and they were burdened with paying the other countries of Europe retribution. And so nobody was happy. So the Weimar Republic was kind of the same old, and then you had the communists and the fascists, and the communists had a fairly recent win in Russia with the Bolshevik Revolution in 1917. So what the Nazis did was they started the Reichstag on fire, which was essentially the equivalent to our U.S. Capitol, and they blamed on the communists. So now the tide turned to favoring the Nazis because they were afraid of the communists and what they were doing. So that got Hitler that chunk of votes that he needed to get his foot in the door in the government of Germany. So from after that, they continued on and kept pushing, and finally Hindenburg, which was the elderly president of Germany, they essentially pushed him out, and then Hitler, through elections that were manipulated, ended up getting, ruling Germany. I forgot what his title exactly was, but anyways, then he just grabbed everything. So with his secret police and the SS and the Nazis, who most were lunatics, so they took over power for Germany, and all this bullshit about the Third Reich, which is from the Roman years, and building it back, build back better. And we all know how all that turned out. So in modern politics in the U.S., like I had hinted at, now we have Antifa. We never had Antifa until Trump was in, and it was against Trump. And some of these political actors that think they're cute, they brought that shit here, and it's just bullshit. European politics. We don't have it here. America's fought fascism and communism. We're capitalists, and we're a republic. We're not a democracy, and so a lot of questions about the 2020 election. rightly so, because there were a lot of anomalies. There were things that never happened before. You know, people not campaigning, people hiding, yet getting tons of votes, and the manipulation of the media, and the media essentially lying about a lot of things. So I don't want to dive too deep into that. But so what happens is, you know, Trump has a rally, January 6th rally, you know, the day of when they're going to certify the votes. And the whole plan for that was that there was going to legitimately be conservatives in Congress that weren't going to certify the vote, so they could have more time to look into the allegations of if the election was fair. Because what really happened is there's not enough time, because there's no precedents or anything, so there wasn't enough time to build a case, take it to court, and let it go through the motions before it's time to turn over the government. So, you know, a lot of people are like, oh, it didn't, you know, they tried this, they tried that, it didn't go anywhere. Well, because it never got the time of day, really. Because there just wasn't the time to do it. So then so the crowds were peaceful. Trump's speech did not incite violence in any way. It was no different than any political rally. And, you know, his speech literally says we're peacefully going to go to the Capitol and express our concerns. And supposedly there was a lot of government actors embedded with the crowd, including being embedded in groups months before this occurred. And so when they all get around the Capitol, there's video now that people have seen where there are government actors encouraging the people to move forward. Then even the gates get opened by the security and stuff like that. And just real quick, go back. Trump did request National Guard troops to be there, but what's kind of interesting is that Nancy Pelosi, whoever's the head of the House, has to approve those actions, and she wouldn't do it. But leading up to all this, we had that summer of love with all the real riots and burning and looting and killing in our country, and they preempted by not letting Trump bring the National Guard in to quell those actions. So now fast forward like 6 months, Trump's like, you know what? There's going to be a lot of people here. You know, what my people are telling me is that, you know, that's a lot of people. Anything can happen. We should have the National Guard there. Well, no, Mr. President, you cannot bring the National Guard, even though you're the commander-in-chief, in as you willy-nilly want to. We have to approve it. We have to do this. So not only did Nancy Pelosi say no, but the mayor of Washington, D.C. said no, and I don't know where the governors were on that. But anyways, so as you know, it turned into a huge-ass fiasco, and all it was an overzealous celebration. It's a riot. Just like you see when, you know, the Lakers win a title or other sports teams win a title, you'll have people get out of hand and they're tearing down street signs and breaking windows and starting cop cars on fire and stuff like that. That's essentially what happened. So, um, so now the Democrats, kind of kicked the beehive, and actually, I want to go back just a step. So, what got the crowds kind of moving around is that the police there early on did tear gas and flashbang grenades directly into the crowd. You'll hear different things about how many people died and police died, and one of the reasons why I'm talking about this is because Biden just made 2 speeches with tons of inaccuracies talking about going to funerals of police that died that day. No police died on that day. There was a handful of assaults. One police officer did die a couple days later, but it was ruled natural causes. Causes not related to being at the January 6th event, but other health reasons. The only people that died on January 6th were Ashley Babbitt, who was shot and killed by a cop that acted unprofessionally. She had a cop on each side of her, and they were a little raucous up against the door of the chamber. And this guy, Lieutenant Byrd, he got scared or whatever, and he shoots through the door, shoots her in the neck, and she succumbs to that injury. But he shoots right at in the direction of other police officers. I don't know why he didn't. They brushed that incident under the rug. It was if it was the other way around, it would be a whole racial war thing going on because she was white, he was black, and if it was the other way around, we've seen that a million times. But anyways, I had somebody mention to me one time a while back, well, Trump did this and he caused this and that girl died because of him. No, that girl died because she was there, she was acting like a fool, and she was where she shouldn't have been. Anybody with common sense that knows you don't go in there. It's a risk she took, and she didn't think she was going to get killed, I guarantee that, but she should have at least thought she was going to get arrested. Anyways, that's how it rolls. You got to stand up for what you believe in, and if you do, you got to be able to roll with the punches. And it gets really unfair, and this is going on now when the government really puts their boot on your neck. And that's what they did to a lot of the January 6 people. So anyways, that's getting slightly ahead. Let's see if I can pick up where I wanted to. So then we had a couple other people died that day, and it was from heart attacks and stuff like that from the flashbangs being thrown into the crowd. And I don't know what the exact number is. I've seen it back and forth. So you're between 3 and 5 people total that died because of direct action, because of occurrences on January 6th, and all of them were the protesters. Okay, so that occurrence happens, and our government's got control of the videotapes and testimonies. Eventually, they do their investigation, and I don't know what goes through the mind of some of these people, but Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger, or whatever his name is, Kinzinger, they go batshit crazy. They're involved with suppressing some of the video and the narratives and the stories. And so the Democrats turn this all into the Reichstag fire event. And you see Biden up there really being speaking like a dictator. you know, they built gallows, son of a bitch's gallows up there. And yeah, well, I don't know about that. I never heard about the gallows until that day. And I looked it up. Now there's a whole bunch of stories about gallows. Well, I don't know. Maybe the FBI brought the gallows. Who knows? So this whole election is essentially making the American public afraid of what a Trump second term would be. And, you know, we know what Trump did in his first term. And if you didn't listen to a bunch of idiots on the media, you know there was a lot of good things that came out of the Trump presidency. But if you bought into all that stuff from The View and all those other shitheads that don't use their head for anything, and they're anti-Americans, they're not being truthful, they don't look into anything, they just regurgitate the same stuff over and over. Anyways, so they're trying to scare the shit out of you, thinking that you're going to vote in, you know, Hitler 2.0. And they're like, oh, he's living in the past, everything's going to be retribution and that. Well, not exactly. He's vowing to correct the problems that led up to a lot of this stuff. You know, the Russia collusion thing, which turned out to be zero collusion, everything made up by a political opponent of his, nothing has happened with that. You know, you had 50 members of the CIA. Sorry, that's the laptop. That's government disinformation. You know, it was constant. You know, and then we went through COVID with it. So I know I'm getting a little sideways on this. I do everything off the top of my head. Should have made a chart like the last one. But anyways, so the thing is, when Trump was in office, more people per capita were employed, more startups occurred, more public money was in the economy. You know, there was the opportunity zones, which you don't hear anything about. You have to go look it up, and all that stuff is suppressed. But there was billions of dollars pledged to all these opportunity zones, and there was maps of what the opportunity zones were, and they were a lot of, not to be a bad term, but has-been places. Like where I grew up in central New York, there was a lot of those places were labeled as opportunity zones, because you still had some of the workforce there, you had good infrastructure in most cases, and you know, trying to rejuvenate those places. And I swear that the people that are jockeying for power don't want that to happen. I really think they want us to be at the mercy of them. They want us to have to rely on them. Because the more we do, the more we don't stand up, the more we can't talk. You know, I'm in Arizona. How do I protest my federal government? Well, you can talk to your congressperson. Well, even though she's a Republican, you know, she's not going to listen to what I have to say. Anyways, in closing, I guess what I want to say is that, you know, learn history. That's why we got to keep all these monuments around, so we know, you know what, that guy did this bad, and he did that bad, and they did this, and they did that. And there's a lot of parallels between right today and 1933 Germany. We're not really rounding up a group of people or anything like that, but the way that the government's using manipulation, media, stuff like that. And I'm not a conspiracy type person, but a lot of that stuff has some weight to it. So what I want to emphasize is that we know what Trump will do when he gets in, and it's good. Of course, you poke the bear, or you get the badger in the corner and he's going to strike back. The guy's a son of a bitch. He's our son of a bitch. So he needs to be in office again. He should have been in there 2 consecutive terms, and we wouldn't have this shit. Then we'd be moving on to the next evolution of America. But bringing Biden in was terrible for this country. It's going to hurt and hurt and hurt for decades. All this stuff with EVs and that's abnormal. I'm a day one investor in Tesla, and what they're doing with EVs is wrong. You know, it has to evolve. It's premature, and it's costing us a lot. Cars are $20,000 more on average than they were just a few years ago. Okay, so that was a tangent. So don't be afraid. The world's not going to come to end with Trump. The country's going to be, well, I want to say it's going to be better. His intent is to make it better, but the communists are going to come out of the woodwork again, just like they did before, and they're going to just cause trouble and trouble and trouble and burn the cities and make everything look like mayhem. And we're self-defeating if we follow along with them. So hopefully you got the gist of this. Remember in November.